Since January, we've been reporting on Austin ISD's Special Education Department and how it's been placed under the watch of a Texas education agency state monitor. One of TEA's main goals, to clear the district's evaluation backlog to see if hundreds of students qualify for special education services. But while the district is working to clear that backlog, investigative reporter Kelly Wiley found there's another group of students who qualified for those services but are still waiting for the actual help to start.
Now I've heard there was a secret chord.
Though singing comes easy, Madeline Bett's dyslexia makes reading hard.
Hey, are you okay?
Living with autism makes the social part of school complicated. In 2021, following the deaths of her grandmother to COVID and aunt to a seizure, her doctor recommended she learn from home, diagnosing her with depression and social phobia.
Her anxiety popped up, and then she was very almost agoraphobic about going out.
Since then, Maddie's been in Austin ISD's Homebound program. It's come with challenges. In 2022, the district failed to provide her with services it had promised, a speech therapist and a counselor, according to a state investigation. Then this school year, as thousands of students started learning, she sat at home without a plan for her homebound instruction.
She still has received no services since the beginning of school. She has been enrolled, but she has not received anything so far.
At the time of our interview, it had been more than a month. Email records showed there were 3 separate meetings scheduled to determine her individual education plan for the school year, or IEP. One of them canceled after the district mistakenly unenrolled her from school.
I'm angry. I'm very, very angry. I am very sad for Maddie. What their priority is what TEA is on them about, which is the evaluations. That's what they are fixing. They are not fixing anything else.
Federal law says school districts have to evaluate a student suspected of needing special education services 45 school days after receiving parental consent. It's what TEA investigators found AISD repeatedly failed to do on time. But once the district determines a student qualifies, Texas law requires districts to create a plan, or IEP, for how they'll help the student within 30 calendar days. Help like reading intervention, small groups for dyslexia, counseling, and speech therapy. Even when the district fails to evaluate a student on time, it still gets the full 30 days to create the plan. In September, KXA and investigators found there's another backlog within AISD. Students whose parents and teachers started asking for them to be evaluated last school year. More than 400 students who qualified for additional help. But still, a summer later and weeks into the new school year, they were waiting. Our team also found there were 30 additional students waiting even longer, flagged 2 school years ago, still waiting for services to start.
This was my takeaway with the parents who are pushing for all these evaluations. Great, you'll get nothing once you get the evaluation, because from what they've told me, they don't have the staff, they don't have the teachers.
We had quite a bit of progress made over the summer.
Dr. Drew McGovern-Robinette took over Austin ISD's Special Education Department last school year.
We were trying to make sure that we were fulfilling as many, if not all of those, that could be within the appropriate timeline. Some of those might have been missed.
These 400 kids who were waiting on their services to be determined and implemented, were they all within timeline?
No, I can't speak to whether or not all of them were in timeline.
After our interview, we followed up with the district and learned in a month's time, the number of kids who've been waiting since last school year for services is down by about half to 239, including those students who've since qualified. About 65% are still on track and within the state timeline.
What I can assure you is that any or all students that may have had any delay in either part of the process, that there would be the convening as quickly as possible for that, and that there would be a full discussion around compensatory services if appropriate for that student.
She really liked that.
Maddie is still at home. Following our interview, her mom met with the district, which started her homebound instruction again. Her plan includes a slow transition back to in-person classes.
There's a lot of unknowns at this point now, like, are they going to be able to catch her up in time? What is important is that she gets the instruction here and that they teach her that school is going to be a safe place for her.
Kelly, Dr. Robinette talked about compensatory services. What exactly is that?
It's really the idea that the district is somehow making up for the learning loss that occurs when there's a gap in services or a delay in services. It could be the district giving that student an extra hour of speech therapy every week. It could also be them giving money to the families directly to hire people like tutors or counselors.
How does that apply to Maddie's case?
Well, in Maddie's case so far, this is according to her individualized education plan, the most recent one, they've not provided compensatory services, at least not for the gap that occurred this year.
So we know the state has been criticized over its own issues around special education. Austin ISD is also spending more than what the state gives them for special education. Are other districts and charter schools in the same situation?
It's a question I think that's on a lot of people's mind. Data from the Texas Education Agency shows from last school year, 81% of school districts and charters are evaluating 100% of their students on time. That's including the 6th largest district in the country, Houston ISD. Meanwhile, Austin ISD is among at least 200 districts and charters that are non-compliant. In fact, the data shows only 4 other school districts in the state with a lower compliance rate than Austin ISD had that year.
All right, Kelly, thank you very much. And keep in mind, the timeline is still running, so we will keep following up to see how the district is progressing. A closer look at the timeline of special education issues at AISD and more perspective on the backlog data. Online now, and this story in the Texas Politics section of our website. The future of the state's water supply is on your ballot. We look closer at the billion-dollar decision now facing Texas voters.